Welcome to another installment of the Head Magazine series, Interviews with Experts. I'm JP. Today we're interviewing Brittany Cohen and Rabii, the founders and partners of Cannabis Legal Team, which is a law firm committed to all things cannabis. They assist clients with navigating complex cannabis, hemp, and CBD laws and regulations. They help with business formation, including local and state licensing and regulatory compliance for both CBD and THC, and contract law strategies. They recently helped co-found the Sixth Man Wellness, focusing on funding cannabis initiatives at the local, state, and national level. Kathy serves on the legislative committee of the California Cannabis Industry Association, and Brittany serves on the policy committee of the National Cannabis Industry Association. They are both members of the National Association of Consumer Advocates. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Brittany. Hi. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having us. We're excited.
I'm excited too. You're down in the San Diego area, is that right?
We are. Correct.
That's where your legal practice is located?
Yes. A lot of our business is in LA also, because that's kind of the main hub of cannabis in California. So, you know, from LA down, we've got it covered for the most part, but we're based out of San Diego.
Well, when you're admitted to the California bar, then you can practice law in any part of the state, or is the state divided in portions? How does it work?
No, so when you're admitted to the California bar, you can practice anywhere in California. So we do help clients all over the state.
And the laws pertaining to marijuana, cannabis, and such these are state laws that we're talking about. Are there also municipal laws that will differ from place to place then?
Sure. We do have a state law, Malcursa, that kind of, I guess, provides the baseline laws. And then the cities, municipalities, they can create stricter laws if they want to. We're seeing some cities pushing back on the state. There's a little bit of a conflict of laws going on there, but we do have state regulations and local regulations.
Interesting.
So, even though California has legalized cannabis both medically and recreationally, if a particular city does not want there to be, dispensaries or cannabis to be sold or delivered in and out of their jurisdiction, they have the complete control to say, no, we don't want cannabis. So you are right. It's a problem where medical patients are living in certain jurisdictions and they don't have access to their medicine because their city doesn't allow them to obtain it in a lawful manner.
So that's not theoretical. There are actually cities and places in California where the laws are stricter than they would be in the neighboring community. Would that be correct?
Absolutely.
If a community wants to be more liberal with the laws, can they loosen things up? So the state is the ceiling, and I guess okay. So, but at some point, it's the state that controls it, and not the city in terms of how far they can go.
Correct. Now, and whenever the state is unsure, they just default to the federal. So they don't want to run afoul to getting in trouble federally. So they say, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and if they don't know, then they just say, well, we default to whatever the federal agency is in that particular position. So if it's illegal, it's illegal. We don't give you authority to do so.
That's interesting. So you've got the federal government and you've got the state of California, but you've got various states. And so different states, even those that have legalized marijuana, cannabis, they have different rules. I guess Nevada has a different set of codes than Oregon or wherever else cannabis has been legalized. That would be correct, wouldn't it?
Correct. Yeah. Every state has their own.
Now, on the federal level, are there different departments that have the regulatory control, or is it one particular umbrella that it goes under? How does that work?
Yeah. As far as legality is concerned, we have the Controlled Substances Act, which has been a hot topic recently because marijuana remains, despite state legalization, it remains a federally illegal substance. It's still on the Controlled Substances Act, whereas hemp, for example, has recently been moved off of the Controlled Substances Act. They've excluded it from the definition of marijuana, where it has lived for many, many years. So, technically speaking, the DEA shouldn't be going after hemp anymore because it's not on the Controlled Substances Act. However, we have, other agencies that are involved in different capacities, like the FDA on the federal level. They're going to get involved anytime there's some sort of dietary supplement or food product going around with any type of cannabis material in it. So, they'll play a role.
Then you also have like the rules of interstate commerce. So like transporting it across state lines, you're using like federal postage system. So even if it's going from one lawful state to the other, what are the means in which the transportation is happening? Because you can't use federal resources to transport federally illegal substances.
So marijuana that's being sold in California would be grown in California, or are there ways to bring it in from? So it's a self-contained body because the federal government will not allow marijuana to cross state borders.
Correct.
Okay. Now the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration, and you said the DEA, which is the
enforcement agency.
Okay. And so this interest. So there's a lot of. Has the Supreme Court gotten involved in this, or there are cases pending, or they're not going to look?
Cases that have gone up to the Supreme Court is when it involves medical marijuana and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So there have been cases that have gone up to the Supreme Court where, let's say somebody had epilepsy or a known disability, and the only difference in how they treat their illness is in their choice of medicine. If one person chooses to treat their disability, their protected disability, with marijuana, and the other person decides to treat their disability with, a prescription from the, pills or whatever the particular diagnostic is, they could get fired from their job for testing positive for marijuana, and there's nothing that the employer can do or say to protect. So there's been cases that have gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, hey, listen, it's still a federally illegal substance. If you're working for a company that works in multiple states and they're a national company, you have to follow the federal law. So the Americans with Disabilities Act is a federal act. It protects all the people. So even though you're covered, if your choice of medicine differs, then you're no longer covered anymore.
Would it be fair to say that this is a mess?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a technical term that I use.
Yes,
But
legal term.
Hot mess.
Okay. Well, we've got now in the world in this world, we've got CBD and we've got THC, and these are two different things. So that correct? And does the law look at them differently? How are they different? What's going on with that?
Yeah. So the law does look at them differently. THC and marijuana, like I just said, they are federally controlled Schedule I substances. So they're highly illegal. The main difference in the compounds, I guess, if you will, they're both cannabinoids that are found in the cannabis plant, both hemp and marijuana. Their biggest difference is that one is psychoactive and one is not. CBD is non-psychoactive, which is a lot of the reason why it's proliferated the way that it has.
You don't get high.
You don't get high.
Okay.
You don't get that high feeling. Yeah, so that's what I mean when I say non-psychoactive. I guess then another huge difference is that people who don't want that high feeling or are kind of scared of marijuana, they gravitate towards CBD because of its perceived medicinal benefits. So I'm sure, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard that, CBD is helping people with everything under the sun, from sleep, seizures, epilepsy, pain, inflammation. I mean, you name it, it's helping. So it's a really good starting point for someone who is kind of scared of cannabis, scared of marijuana. They're a little bit overwhelmed. They don't want to be high. They just want the medicinal benefits. CBD is a good route to go.
It's kind of also helped to break the stigma of cannabis, because cannabis has been living under this really negative connotation where, they say no to drugs. And CBD has kind of gained this widespread recognition that it's acceptable to use. And you see more of the older generations.
Yes.
Their starting point. When you look at like the sales metrics in a lot of the dispensaries, the bulk of first-time users are, the 44, maybe like 30 to 50 year old age range, and the first thing that they buy is CBD. They don't try THC for the first time.
Well, since you brought up the age question here, let's get practical again. To use marijuana, you need to be a certain age in California, right? To purchase it legally and to consume it. And what is that age?
In California, it's 21.
21,
but
which, okay.
If you see like CBD lotions at CVS or what have you, because there's no black and white law that says you have to be 21 or 18 to buy CBD. Ironically enough, CBD is like the least harmful of the compounds. Harmful meaning like it has no toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is more illegal than THC. THC is so highly regulated that what you're doing, like the rules that you need to follow because it's been laid out for you. CBD is just this huge gray area. So it's really left up to the store's decision on who they want to sell it to. So if you're going to go buy CBD in like a smoke shop where they primarily sell tobacco products, if the smoke shop's policy is you have to be 18 or enter or 21 to enter, then that's how old you have to be. But if you're going to CVS and you're going to go buy a lotion, or I've seen like CBD lotions in like shoe stores, it's their particular policy. There are no laws that they're following on who they can sell it to.
So the ambiguity, I'm guessing, is because it hasn't been tested in the court yet. The court hasn't ruled on what the law actually says.
Well, the courts are kind of like, we want you guys to figure it out. We don't want to waste court resources, to make it up. Yeah.
Okay.
So the courts want a hands off until the legislators come in and give a clear guideline of how they're supposed to rule one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, now your practice. You have your clients come in, and are they mostly industrial, the retailers, the growers, or do you represent all kinds of people? Tell me about your practice.
Yeah, so we represent all kinds of people. We represent clients that, what we call in the industry, touch the plant. So, your cultivators, manufacturers, distributors, retailers. And then we have a lot of ancillary companies that are sprouting out, everything you could think of, from like vending machines to magazines to staffing agencies. So the whole gamut, really.
Yeah, even cannabis marketing companies, because there's a lot of ambiguity in how you're allowed to, market both CBD and THC. There's a lot of restrictions. So because you see the CBD and THC, it's such a booming market right now that everyone's trying to get involved. Where people get into the most trouble is how they market and how they advertise and the claims they make. So if they're not careful, that's, usually we get clients after they get in trouble and they made a mistake. And so we need to clean up the mess. But that's where you see most of the people. I mean, THC, there's really no marketing at all, period, because the restriction, it's not worth getting in trouble. But CBD, the FDA, you've seen, they recently came out right before Thanksgiving. I want to say like 2 days before Thanksgiving, they issued about 15 warning letters to really big CBD companies like Curaleaf and Charlotte's Web, saying that if they've made some sort of substantiated claims that the FDA now has jurisdiction to govern and say, you're not allowed to say this. If you don't clean up how you're marketing this to the public, we can either sue you, we can seize your products, or we can take you to get an injunction to stop you from continuing your business.
That's so interesting, because I see billboards all along the boulevards advertising for head shops and home delivery and that kind of thing.
So I was going to clarify when Brittany said that there's like no advertising allowed. Which means is that they made it so difficult that practically the only source of advertising that's left for these dispensaries are these billboards, and they have to comply with, you know, like the Outdoor Advertising Act. They have to prove that the like percentage of people that are going to be seeing these ads or these billboards, I think it's like 76% or 72%, something like that, don't quote me, has to be under the age. They have to be adults, essentially.
It can't be enticing to children.
You can't target a vulnerable population. So you can't target elderly or pregnant women.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they're making it really difficult for them to advertise.
It's kind of the Wild West out there, isn't it? Talk to me about the marijuana economy. Has it been as big as they predicted? Has it been a disappointment? Do we know yet where where businesses are going, how this is going to shake out? Are there going to be a few large companies dominating the market? Is it a mom and pop kind of? Where do you see the marijuana industry, the marijuana business people ending up? Do you have a sense of that? Is it too soon to know?
Yeah, well, you hear kind of the big talks of like the Marlboro, the cigarette company. They recently bought out a cannabis company. I'm drawing a blank on their name, but their plan in the future is to be able to sell pre-rolled joints in all the, you know, gas stations like they do with cigarettes, or to be able to put pre-rolled joints, you know, in vending machines or in casinos. Then you hear talks of like Coca-Cola. They're interested in getting in the CBD space because they hear all of the buzz around, you know, CBD. And you hear a lot of the big beer companies, they want to come up with some sort of CBD or THC beer than the non-alcoholic beer, because you can't mix the THC and alcohol. And actually the way that Prop 64, which was the bill that passed in California to allow recreational cannabis, it almost did a disservice to the small cannabis businesses, because the way it set up the landscape was that after 5 years or so, the big businesses can essentially just buy out all the little businesses. And that's what will happen in terms of like encroaching and
5 years.
Yeah.
When does the 5 years start? Is that how far into 5 years are we then? We're about 2 years in?
2016. So
Probably 2022.
2022, you're probably going to look at a nice shift in balance of power if you haven't already. And also to that same point, when we go to the marijuana economics, it's inevitable to talk about the banking issue, because no business can get a loan because banks are, you know, federally insured. So they are not allowed to work with cannabis businesses or CBD businesses.
So they're strangling the small businessman that needs to borrow money.
Yes. So right now, the only way to make it is either get private funding or to already have a lot of money. So that's it's inevitable to have that imbalance of power where it's going to be a capitalistic, you know, industry.
And to speak to California specifically, you know, the industry has been pushing so hard and was kind of led to believe that the state was looking to lower the taxes on, you know, marijuana sales, and that's something that the state has been pushing for. And when I say the state, I mean the industry. They've been pushing for because they've been suffocated with these taxes. And then recently, like a month ago, California came out and said they're raising the taxes. So people have this misconception that if you have a dispensary here in California, then it's kind of like a ticket to print cash. Like it's like a get rich quick situation. But because of all these taxes, these dispensaries, the majority of them are struggling to break even. Like they're really, it's hit them hard, and it's not what people think it is from the outside.
The cost to comply leaves no incentive to get legal right now in California.
Right. So there are news reports that the illegal marijuana market is remained a more important economic force than the legal marijuana market, and that's because the market is overregulated.
It's twofold. Yeah, it's the regulations and it's the lack of banking. Like it's
yeah. So the illegal people have ways to get money that the legal people don't. I suppose. Yeah.
And like you look at Colorado, California was supposed to mirror Colorado. That's why we waited for, another state and we watched them and be successful. But they had a plan that they were every dollar that they taxed for cannabis, they put right into like the school districts. California didn't have a plan on what they're going to use the tax money for. So California lacks, a specific purpose for the tax. They just know it's going to make them money. And they also lack a lot of the resources, a lot of like the human bodies that are going to sit there and create the regulation and enforcement. And so it just leaves these gaps on what you can and can't do. And that's why people then defer right back to the black market, because if I'm already going to get in trouble, if I'm already not sure what to do, I don't want to pay to get in trouble. I'd rather just do what I'm doing.
Honestly, if you think about it, the reason that we are here where we are today, the states legalizing the way that they have, is because of people consuming via the black market, right? The consumption was so much that
That's the theory.
It became, unreasonable to keep it, illegal. But these same people that have been consuming it forever, you're telling them, hey, that product that you've been using, you're going to go drive way out of your way, go drive 30 minutes out of your way to pay double for it. Whereas you can probably just keep getting it from wherever you've been getting it for the same price you've been getting it. There's no incentive to switch to the legal market. And that's a big problem.
Now, the other part of that is the argument that by decriminalizing marijuana, we help relieve the burden on the justice system. These are the individuals that end up going to prison. Are we seeing that? Is that a real thing? What's your take on at the consumer level, what that's doing to people?
Yeah, I do see a trend of decriminalization happening. And if marijuana legalization is going to continue the way that it's going, I think that's the right thing to do.
So that's a good thing. Okay.
It is a good thing. Obviously, each situation is different. If somebody's, importing, I don't know, hundreds of pounds of marijuana in their tire trucks from like Mexico, maybe that's like a different situation. But like, your local kid on the street,
right?
Like a half ounce, you probably shouldn't be ruining their life for that.
But at the same time, in terms of decriminalization, going back to like the issue with banking right now, because all of these like licensed shops, they can only operate with cash. You see a lot of, the drivers. They have to be really careful because you hear of all these like horror stories that the drivers get mugged, robbed, and stores are getting robbed because they know that these are just these people are just driving around with so much cash, or there's so much cash in these stores, and that's their only alternative. So there are gang violence surrounding those type of environments.
And speaking of driving, it's never okay to drive while you're consuming marijuana. That's just a simple.
Most states have implemented a zero tolerance policy because they haven't come up with the correct measure of enforcement to detect like your level of influence.
Right.
So there's no scientific measure like a DUI yet. So instead, it's like it's just if they show any signs and it's based off of the cops' perception, then you just SL.
You definitely get a DUI.
Yeah.
Well, let's lighten it up a little bit, okay? Tell me about Sixth Man Wellness. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. What is that?
So the Sixth Man Wellness, we work with Meta World Peace, formerly Ron Artest, and Larry Sanders, who are both former NBA players. And basically how this partnership kind of came to fruition is that they've been approached time and time again to do marketing either for marketing or for investments for all these cannabis businesses because you can't get loans.
Okay.
So instead, we created a team where we help evaluate the business ventures of any particular CBD or THC business. We evaluate the investment opportunity. We evaluate if we can add any value from a marketing perspective.
So you're looking at their business plan. You're looking at.
And we just invest when we invest money and marketing resources if we believe in the business, and we just we create joint ventures in that sense. So Sixth Man Wellness is essentially it's a fund, but we're not a fund.
We're not.
We
A
raise
fund being a
help raise-
legal, right, a legal distinction, but you are, you become investors then, I guess.
Yes.
You're
We
capitalists.
invest in cannabis. Yes,
Yeah.
we invest
Yeah.
in cannabis businesses.
And there's about a team of like 7 of us that we work with to evaluate the deals and structure the right.
So your fingers on the pulse of the cannabis, the marijuana market. Then you have a good sense of how it works, where it's selling.
We look at the metrics. We've seen it all from like people who want to come up with CBD.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, with technology to kind of. I'm not a technology person, but technology to kind of scope the web and shut down black market dispensaries, to people who want to create vending machines, to people who just they want to license it with the NBA. They want to license some sort of CBD drink or option. So there's no shortage of opportunity to get involved in the cannabis business, whether in the ancillary space or directly with the product. The shortage is in capital for most people.
That's so interesting. Okay, and you're both lawyers.
Yeah.
So you have that right. So
We are, and none
if
of
people
this
want
is
to contact you. Okay, so someone's watching this, or they know whatever it is. How do they reach you? How do they contact you? Where can they find you?
Sure.
You can find us on our website. We have the cannabislegalgroup.com.
The cannabis. I'm going to say it slowly. Okay. The cannabislegalgroup.com.
Correct.
And so you go to the website and then have all the information there.
Yes.
Okay.
Feel free. We answer our phones all the time. You can call us 858-800-2458.
Okay. No, let's do it. Let's do it slower. Okay.
858-800-2458.
Okay.
And we're also really active on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to just reach out to us on LinkedIn, that's a surefire way to just initiate a conversation. And we can, direct you over to our email or website, because it might be easier to find us or just to initiate that initial conversation to see if we're a fit, if we can help you, and vice versa. So LinkedIn's always a surefire way.
Okay. Well, this was very interesting. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us here at Head Magazine, and we'll be following you on the website.
Awesome.
Great. So nice
Thank
to meet you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a nice day.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.